Really interestingly, I really like this. The second one that you pick up, and this one I did learn from Simon, I have to admit, but it's something that's stuck with me for a long time. And it is something that I share with the audience of the Leadership Project as well. And it actually comes from Nelson Mandela's father, in fact. And that is about, and I want everyone to listen to this one very clearly at home, that leaders need to learn to be the last to speak.
Yeah.
For the reasons that Lee is talking about. It is human nature. And it's not even what you say. It's even your body language. When you're in a room of people and there is a leader in the room, whether they are the leader by appointment or leader by their inspiration and them, in New Zealand, we'd call it mana, their ability to inspire people, and the person that everyone looks to, they are looking for body language signals. They're looking for what they say, how they say it. And if you're speaking too early, you're going to shut down the conversation. Can you explore that or unpack that a little bit more for us, Lee?
Totally. There's been so much research done about that leadership bias, and it's changed the way that I brainstorm with our teams, all the different teams that I'm on. It's changed the way that we interact, and it's changed the conversation between Stephanie and I, quite honestly, because if we did a brainstorm at the dance studio years ago, that is what it would be. Exactly. All right, let's get the whiteboard out or flip chart paper, and let's get together, a whole bunch of ideas that we can, for new marketing ideas or something like that. And Stephanie or myself would come up with one, and then people would say, great, let's go. And there was a great amount of study coming out from Harvard that said, that there's so much of a leadership bias. And I read this years ago, and I said to Stephanie, like, all right, here's the deal. We can't be the first to answer. In fact, we got to let them do the brainstorm, and we're just going to observe it and see where they get to. We can still make a decision. We can still, we've got our ideas. And that's what Harvard said is, like, basically they call it, instead of brainstorming, it's brain thinking first. So write down your ideas, write it down so that you capture a bunch of those. And then we can all contribute to the sort of collective pool. Traditional rules of brainstorming still apply. There's no bad ideas. It's like good improv comedy, right? Like you just say yes and how can we build on this? You don't have to defend what's been said or say like, oh no, that marketing idea won't work. Don't say that. There's that negative programming coming back in. Just like maybe it doesn't make the short list at the end. Okay, right? Like you don't have to defend your idea. You don't have to get anything off track by saying something. We just say, yeah, what else is there that we can do? So I love that idea of that brain thinking. Let's write a bunch of these things down, and then we can all contribute to that. Started doing that at the studio years ago. At the beginning of the pandemic, Simon did that with the entire team too, to say like, okay, everyone come with 15 ideas of new things that we can do. It wasn't one or two, because we would get the same one or two from everybody, right? Let's do online classes. Oh, great. We haven't thought of that one yet, right? Like, what else? And so everyone came with, like, it was a vast amount of ideas. And it was really kind of wild. I don't know if anybody ever came with 15, but like, you can see the idea here that like more is better. The quantity beats quality when we're looking at brainstorming. So how else can we foster that engagement? And again, in a virtual environment compared to an in-person environment, I've been using lots of different forms to do that too. Open up a Google Sheet. Everyone has access to it. Everyone type those into that Google Sheet so that we can just get that running list going, or use the chat, or some of the other tools like Miro and Mural are fantastic for things like that. Everyone's got access to Google, of course, Google Jamboards, right? Like these are great things that we can utilize, harness that technology. And quite honestly, there's another place where this might be a better thing than in person, is that if I can sit here and think in quiet for my own, couple of minutes here before I am asked to contribute to that, that's good. And I'm not worried about the person that's next to me, because that would be me, the class clown that's gonna rib you or say a little something or get you off track. And you need to think, right? Yeah, you're raising your hand too. I see you, Mac. That's we could be kindred spirits there, right? I'm going to do that because that's part of my process, right? I'm going to procrastinate a little bit, go like, oh my gosh, what they asked us to do again? And if I have that in chat that says, here's what you're being asked to do, or everybody goes to their breakout rooms or something along those lines that really can, and all of a sudden I can come back and I'm focused, I'm ready. I'm like, okay, here I can contribute. Bonus points if I know what the topic is before we get to that meeting, so that way I can show up prepared for that, which for some people might be like, I don't prepare at all. And other people are like, oh my gosh, I've done 10 years worth of research now all of a sudden in order to make that happen. And Mick, I can't remember the exact question that you asked that got me onto that tangent of just that idea of brainstorming, but I hope that I answered that.
It was brilliant. We started with leaders should speak last, but that was such a expansion that I want to add something here. I just love everything you just said, Lee. And one of the things that it unlocks is diversity and inclusion.
Yes.
And so many organizations are struggling with this today. So diversity, collecting a diversity of thoughts from a diverse group of people, and inclusion, giving the people a psychologically safe environment where they can have the platform, where they can voice their opinion, where their opinions are valued, and where they feel like they matter. By using these techniques that you're talking about, Lee, you're enabling that environment. And when we say diversity and inclusion, I'm not just talking about gender, race, socioeconomic background. I'm even talking introverts and extroverts.
Yes.
You're giving a level playing field where everyone can have their say.
Totally. Yeah. It, thankfully this has been in the conversation recently, but it always should have been. Oftentimes when I set up these mastermind groups with all these groups of CEOs and things, they say, oh, well, like we want somebody in here that's got a bigger business than the rest of the group here so that we can learn from that person. And here we are again, going back to the dance studio. If I told you how many times I heard from a parent that said, but my kid does better with older kids. I'm like, at some point, no one wants to be the youngest one in the class. No one wants to be the oldest one in the class either. No one wants to be the smallest size business. No one wants to be the largest size business because everybody wants to be learning from each other. But for me, I'm looking at that and I'll say, when I set up a group of CEOs, yes, absolutely. I'm looking for different races, for genders, for sexual orientations, for anything that you can see. I want, in US terms, I want Republicans, I want Democrats, I want everybody. I want everybody at that table, because what got you here is so different than what got me there. And I'm open to that learning, no matter where it comes from. And if we can have that conversation in a very respectful nature, you're never going to convince me. If you're a liberal, you're never going to convince me to be a conservative, and vice versa. I'm pretty sure, right? Like you've probably got that figured out. And I'm not going to try and convince you or sway you any one way or another. But what I'm always interested in learning is why you made that decision that you made for yourself. And no defense, right? No judgment from me to say like you should or shouldn't have done that or anything like that. Hot topic today, of course, with vaccines. And are you going to be vaccinated? Or are you not going to be vaccinated? You're going to vaccinate your kids or not, or any of those things. And I'm super curious about why. Not about if you are or not, or if you have or haven't, or what your opinion is around, the science and all that sort of stuff. I want to know why you made that choice, because I would just guess that 99.5 times out of 100 that there's huge learning for me in that. Not so much about, all that other stuff that goes along with it, but your journey to get you to that decision. Fascinating, absolutely fascinating. So I'll listen to that all day long. You start yelling and screaming about how you're wrong and I'm right, or any of that sort of stuff, everybody tunes out. So that I want to have all those different backgrounds, because that's the joy that comes to that table. And if I can hear what your background and what made you who you are today, I mean, who knows? Like if this is the big project and it falls into your wheelhouse and you're the most junior person on our team that's been here like 3 days, but all of a sudden I can see that lines up with something that you have in your past, I am using that strength to our team's advantage. And we do that with choreography all the time at the dance studio. Okay, we need someone to do something really a wild, crazy trick right here. So let's take that person that's got the gymnastics background that can do this crazy flip in the middle of the stage and not eat, right? Like, let's do that. And then we need somebody else in another scene that's going to be like, I need to take the smallest person so that I can have a group of 10-year-old girls lift up another one. So I'm going to take the smallest person there. So that way it's easier for them to lift that one person and make it look awesome, right? Like, who knows? I never know what the next right move is going to be. But if I can find out, if I can listen to your background and hear and understand what's there and what got you here, you could be the next leader for that project, for that item, for that day, for that year, for that company. Who knows? But that's why I want everybody at the table. The biggest size business I can possibly get, the smallest size business I can possibly get. I want that billion-dollar brand. I want that solo entrepreneur that is sitting in their basement, hungry as can be, and scraping it out for $22,000 a year. I want both, because I can learn from both of those people if I'm open to it.
Just brilliantly. There are so many nuggets of gold in there, and I need to summarize it a little bit for the audience at home of everything that I took away from that. But please take your own perceptions away from what you're hearing from Lee. But I'm going to share with you what I took away. So true diversity of thought, where we're getting as much diversity in there as possible. But listen to the other things that Lee was saying. Listening without judgment, keeping an open mind, not listening just for what you want to hear or what you already know is true, listening with true intent to learn something new, listening with curiosity, listening with an open heart and understanding, well, hang on a second, not only am I interested in your view, I'm interested in why you're of that view. What is the emotion or the experience that led you to that conclusion? And then you start exploring new possibilities and new realities and having an open will to follow that. So we're really talking here about not just diversity of thought. We're talking about deep listening and something that I've seen you write about, Lee, which is facilitating conversations that truly matter.
Yeah.
Just wonderful. I just loved every moment of that. We're now really heading towards a lot of the work that you do with EO and with Hesse Partners and with Simon's group, and about these facilitations of these group discussions. And I want to come back to some of the other things that you brought up before. You spoke a lot about, instead of telling people, asking them questions. You spoke about experiences and taking them through experiences. And you spoke about them talking about it amongst each other. Tell us more about those three in the work that you do, where you are running group cohort type sessions, where you're trying to develop cohesive work groups. You're trying to, whether it be a strategy session or could be on a retreat or it could be virtual, to do those group development activities. Tell us more about the power of those three things: asking questions, experiences, and getting them talking amongst themselves.
You know, what's really interesting is that in EO, we set up these groups. I do this in lots of other companies and lots of other different places as well. And what's funny is that people always come to this and they say things like, I'm looking for a group of peers to kind of tell me what to do, or be a good sounding board so I can bounce ideas off of, and that sort of thing. And often we call those like groups like a board of advisors, right? Like, you've heard that term, of course, a million times in your life, I'm sure. And what I've decided is that no one actually wants advice, like, at all. We ask for it all the time and we don't actually want it. We're only ever looking for the advice that ratifies the decision that I've already made in my head. So that's the advice I'm going to look for. So if I say to you, Mick, like, what do you think of my shirt? If you tell me that my shirt looks horrible, I'm going to be like, Mick, you clearly don't know what you're talking about. This shirt looks spectacular, right? What do you think of my hair? My hair has its own cult following, right? So like, that's well, you don't know, you don't have hair. So I mean, like, that's you can't judge my hair. Like great hair recognizes great hair, right? Like that's the not sorry, no disrespect. I'm just, having a little fun here, of course, right? So if you told me that I had fantastic hair, I'd be like, oh my gosh, we're clearly best friends now, right? Like, because you complimented, you ratified that decision that I already made. If you said that you didn't like my hair, that it's been the same style forever and it's crazy and shouldn't you dye it because there's gray streaks going through it and all that sort of stuff, like, then we're not best friends. All of a sudden we're like arch enemies because you didn't agree with the decision that I've already made. So we run around and it's such a basic concept. And you can disagree with me about my shirt. It doesn't really matter, right? It's not gonna make or break my day or anything like that. But if it's a bigger decision, if I look to you and I say, how do you think I'm, parenting my children? I don't have children, but I feel like I've got a bunch of them at the dance studio. So like, what do you think of my parenting style? Well, that's stuff that matters. Mm-hmm. And so now, like, I'm not gonna be open to you saying that, well, you're messing up your kids. Those are fighting words, of course, right? Like we're not friends. And you're going to be friends with those people that have the same sort of parenting style that you do. Those are going to be your friends. And those are the people that are going to, say, no, you're reinforce what might be doing wrong or doing harm or something along those lines too. There's another plug for diversity, right? Like if we can have different people in our social circles that don't agree with everything that we do, okay. But how do we get there? It's by having no judgment. I have no idea, again, what I'm going to learn from each other. I just trust that it's going to show up and be there. I'm never going to be in judge of you and say like, hey, I know what's right for you, so do this. I have no clue. Again, if I go back to your background, your history, I don't know what got you here. I don't know what the right choice is for you to make to change direction with your business. I don't know what the right thing is for you to change the direction with your parenting style either. What I can do is share my experience with you, and you might gain something from that, or you might not. Either way, all I've done is alleviated conflict because I'm not giving you advice. Advice includes judgment. It's not there. It's not there. Here's what got me to where I am today. You take from that what you will, which might be nothing, and away you go. No conflict.
Yeah, really interestingly, and for everyone listening at home, I do need to share with you that Lee does have fabulous hair. And
Thank you. Thanks for noticing.
And it is part of his, and anyone watching the video podcast can comment in the comments below.
Please do. Only good stuff, of course. Yeah.
It's become part of his personal brand, just like my lack of hair has accidentally become part of my personal brand.
Sorry.
You don't have fabulous hair. So really interesting. So the key point here is not advice, experiences, and sharing experiences. And sharing is two-way. It's not.
Yes.
I'm this person and I'm sharing my experiences because I'm important. It's listening to each other.
Yeah.
And listening to each other without judgment. Yeah. All right.
100%.
Let's unpack the questioning part, right? So when you're leading a group, so now you're leading the cohort, how do you, Lee, use questions to inspire and motivate and stimulate the conversation?
Yeah. I do this a lot of times with like my retreat work, which could be for teams or for the groups of CEOs or things like that. I show up. The most often asked question, of course, is who are you? What do you do? Right. So I give them the same sort of thing that you kind of started with, here's my list of credentials. Right. So like I should be qualified to be at this table. And that's so like, great. Which in my mind, like a lot of times they want to introduce themselves to, and I'm like, it doesn't really matter. It really doesn't matter to me. What I'm interested in is you as a human and what got you here, of course, as I said. So I just say things like, so what would bring us the most value for the time that we're going to spend together? What brings us the most value? And then I listen. I ask a good question and then I listen. And that's really it. That's not like is that a key to success? I don't know, right? Like all I do is ask a question and then genuinely listen to the answer. And I'll tell you where this worked really well for me. This was years ago. It was a sort of friend of mine, a CEO that I would say from face view, looks like they had their life just put together so well, right? They had the perfect little family, the white picket fence, the dog, like probably making $1 bazillion a year, like don't have to worry about money or any of that sort of stuff, right? Like just the overall. And I would say that person would tell you that they were probably living a pretty good life at that moment. And here we are, we're in this setting, and I just, we went around, we had, all the sort of formality and stuff. What are the things we're going to work on? And we created a list, a little agenda together about here's the 3 or 4 things that we're going to work on today. Cool. One of those was like, how do we get into touch with what's really going on with us? And so I said, would everyone tell me what's going on in your world? Talk about it business wise, or from your career wise, talk about it from a family standpoint, and then talk about it from a personal standpoint too. And so everyone was going around and giving sort of that gift of that little bit of vulnerability. And this person shared their business thing and they shared their family thing and then said, cool, thanks, that's me, like that's my time. And I went, oh, hold on a second. I didn't hear like your personal update. Like I didn't hear what's going on with you personally. And they said, oh yeah. And they talked again about the business and they talked again about the family. And I said, I hear those. What I don't hear is the you in there. What's you personally? How are you doing? And they said again, and they talk about the business, they talk about the family. And I'm like, what, tell me what's going on with, and I used their name instead of any pronoun or something along those lines, right? I just used their name and I said, how are you doing? And I just got like immense waterworks, right? So just instantly starts to cry. And this person that has it all together and is, perfect on paper said, I can't tell you the last time that someone asked how I was actually doing and genuinely cared about my answer. It was such a powerful lesson to me all those years ago that I'm like, yes, that's our human connection, right? It's not about the stuff or the other things or the other people. It's why does that matter to me? Here's why that matters to me, not to my spouse, my life partner, my partner, my significant other, the people I hang out with, right? It is why that matters to me personally. And everything was going well in terms of like all the other stuff, but inside there was still just some emotions and some feelings and some, at the end of the day, we're all pink and gooey on the inside. And let's talk about that. And that's what we got down to that day. Just that sense of listening. I asked a question and then waited for the response. That was it. There's my key to success. It's the same thing that I do with the 2-year-olds too. How are you doing? And they might tell me about the day at school or, that sort of thing, or what they had for breakfast, or that's a common topic of conversation, or about their pets or something, their family. And I'm like, that's fantastic. And what about you personally? Anything else? And that's when the good stuff comes out.
Yeah.
So ask the question. Is there a list of questions that people ask me that all the time? Can you just give me like a list of like great questions? I draw inspiration from all over the place with those two. I have no idea. And most of the time I don't have like a script of like, I must ask this, and this. I have a sort of idea. All those questions are going to be open-ended. I don't like to give people choices that you must choose A, B, or C, because then it's incredibly hard for them to pick letter D, right? I just say open-ended questions. I look for emotion. I see what you mentioned body language. I observe that body language. You can see when there's a difference. And that's usually my next question. Well, what happened? Or what just changed? Or that sounded bigger than the other stuff. Tell me more about that. And just keep that conversation open. And I found that just to be a key to success, to allow other people to explore what's going on for them, to see what's happening in themselves. Sometimes I don't even know it. Ask the question or give sort of the thought prompt, if you will. A lot of the questions I ask aren't questions, just like you did. Could you unpack that more?
Yeah.
Could you say more about that? And see what greatness is there.
That's wonderful sharing, Lee. Thank you so much. And there's lots of things I take away from that. But what I'm seeing from you is that it's not about a pre-scripted set of questions. It's about being in the moment.
Yeah.
It's about paying attention and paying attention without judgment. And then you'll be able to see the cues. You'll be able to see where you need to take to get that person to open up and have their own moment of self-discovery.
Yeah.
Absolutely wonderful.
That presence is such a gift, right? When I can just be present with somebody, it's amazing. It's incredible. It's a place that I don't know that we get that gift as often as we probably should, like in our world. So I love to give that presence. And it's probably one of my superhero powers, is that I can be totally present with you, and I can be in the moment and quickly too. I don't need a lot of build up and like a lot of like, we can have this conversation. I don't know how long we've been talking now because I'm focused on our conversation. I haven't looked at the clock or anything like that, right? I'll let you keep track of the clock, and you wrap me up when it's time, because I'll talk all day, of course. But that's such a gift. What it also means, my friend Dave Rendell, who has a great book called Freak Factor, he talks about that you don't get a gift without some sort of consequence, right? Like you got a strength, you've got a weakness. There's yin and yang, right? Like you've got all, there's balance, right? So I can be incredibly present with you for however long we need to. The balance part is, though, it makes me a horrible estimator of time. Much to my wife's chagrin, she's like, how long is this thing going to take? I'm like, we should be done in like 20, 30 minutes. And 4 hours later, and I haven't picked up the phone to see what she's calling about, or like, forget about the plans for the barbecue later or something like that, because I'm like so in the moment. I've missed so many flights in my lifetime because this conversation is so good. It's so meaningful to me right now that there is always another airplane. There is always another something else. And I want to be here and in this moment right now together with you. And that's it, right? So somebody asked the other day, they're like, what's the ringtone on your phone? I'm like, I actually don't even know if there is a ringtone on this phone. It's been on silent and do not disturb for, I can't tell you how many years, because that just sucks energy from me. I'd rather be here and in the moment, and I'll catch up with all those messages at some point, or not.
For everyone listening on the podcast, you can probably tell from the audio just how engaged Lee is in the conversation. I can tell you all, share with you this word picture on the Zoom. It's coming through in volumes, right? So everything about what Lee just said about being in the moment, I can tell you is 100% true. And it makes me feel like I'm the most important person in his world right now, that I matter, and this conversation matters to him. And that creates such an environment where I have no idea how long we've been talking either, Lee.
Good.
It could be several hours. I don't know. But honestly, it is a gift. It truly is a gift. And I do agree with you that with every gift you get, or every superpower, you also have a kryptonite.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good sharing. It's one for us all to think about when it comes to self-awareness. One more thing I want to share on that, we'll go to our next topic. It is World Mental Health Day this Sunday, and by the time this goes to air, it would have already passed. But that thing that you said about asking someone how they are and taking a genuine interest in the answer, please. And sometimes it can even be what they don't say that gives you the cue that there's something there, right? So could be that you ask them, how are you today, Lee? And they give a long pause and go, yeah, I'm okay. And what the real answer was the pause, not the words.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So be curious, and if you want to be there for the person, be curious and find out what's really going on in their life. Yeah. Just wonderful.
I want to throw in one little experience share here too, is that and keeping with that idea of the positive psychology and everything too, for years, if I'm not at home, when I wake up in the morning, I'm in some random hotel room in some other city, there to deliver a message, much like today, right? And I would wake up, and depending on the time zone, sometimes I'm ahead, sometimes I'm behind Stephanie or something too. I would send a text message every morning that said like, hi, good morning. I'm so excited. How did you sleep last night? Like all these things, kind of like normal, I would think, morning conversation. Maybe it's not, I don't know. I'm a naturally perky person. I don't need any coffee or anything like that either to get going. So like, it's sort of my first thought as I wake up, I need to go connect with Stephanie, right? Like that's my first thought when I wake up. I send a positive message. And that positive message a lot of times is based on her why or some of her hows or some of the ways that she operates in the world. And so I'll send something, like I know she had a big day. I'm trying to think what that was a couple of days ago. I don't even know what the day of the week today is. But like, maybe it's all the sun in the Bahamas. I'm not sure. But she wasn't here and I knew she had a big day. And I'm like, think of all those lives that you're going to inspire and touch today. And just how awesome is that you get to do that today for a living, right? Like that's it. And so like, I love that. And I love being able to share that positive message. One of our hows at the dance studio is touch the life of each and every dancer. So by talking about that and keeping that forefront and center for her too, not only am it a reminder to me, like, okay, so now what else can I do to go touch somebody else's life today? And it's an inspirational for her, perhaps, to say like, oh, good, like it's going to be a good day where, also she went to bed a little late the night before and maybe didn't eat as well as she could have or should have or something along those lines. So like, I kind of sense that she might be a little low on energy. So I wanted to kind of help pump up a little bit today. And I think that was a good way to kind of do that. And it was after like years of doing this that I simply, I thought about it. I'm like, why don't I do that for other people? Why don't I do that for like our team members or something like that? So I was out of town like that day and I'm like, all right, this is great. I send Stephanie this great message and I get out my phone and I send it to a couple of our staff members. I sent it to our general manager, Sarah, who's just incredible. I sent it to Jory, who's like a dear friend that's been, that worked with us for quite a while. I sent it, and to a couple other people that were on the team with us. And I just sent like, today's going to be an amazing day and you've got this and like how incredible and just, like same sort of feel, just positive. And I did it different to each person because I'm not going to try and copy and paste this and, like do all that sort of stuff. I want to make it custom to each person. And, normally Stephanie like responds back since she wakes up. Oh, I slept great. So good. Yeah, it is going to be a great day. And thank you. And you're going to have a great day too, and kind of give that back and forth to each other. And from all the team members, I got nothing. I got like crickets. Okay. I'm like, well, that's weird. And I waited, like maybe they're not awake yet. Maybe they're not at work. Maybe they're not checking or, who knows? Could be on a phone call, whatever. Right. And like 20, 30 minutes goes by, nothing. 45, an hour, nothing. A couple of hours, I'm in a session. I come back out and I'm like expecting that somebody's going to text back and be like, you too, have a good day. Or I hope you're doing great or something along those lines. Finally, like no response. It's been hours. And I pick up the phone and I called Jory, who's a dear friend and worked with us. And I'm like, hey. Jory's like, hey. Like, did you get my message from earlier? Jory said, yeah. I'm like, and she goes, are you dying? I'm like, what? She's like, are you dying? What are you talking about? She goes, I don't know. I guess this random message from you today that's going to be like, everything's going to be incredible. And you got this and what an awesome day and how inspiring. And my natural assumption is that the next thing that you're going to tell me is horrible news that you've got some cancer or something like that. And I'm like, why would that be your natural assumption? And she said, I don't know, but we've all been talking about it around the office today, like that, like hypothesizing about what could be going wrong or what you're going to say that's bad next because you said something that's good. And I'm like, do we have that type of work environment that would be the case? She said, no. And I'm like, I was just trying to simply say, have a good day. And she's like, cool. I said, if you could respond back next time with have a good day too, that would be awesome. She's like, great. And it became like a running joke around the team to say, and I'm sitting here thinking to myself as a leader, like, it's not that I haven't been, spreading positivity and sharing the message and going towards our vision or any of those things, but I didn't kind of do the work in the maintenance every day to say like, this is going to be good. And this isn't, and I don't want this to be a rote thing that I'm like, every day I must text people or every day I do this thing or every day I buy lunch or like any of that sort of stuff. But I do want to make sure that I'm sort of checking in and touching base. And I do that not just with people that are on our team that I'm, that I have a vested interest in, paying to be there or anything like that, It's friends, it's family members, it's everybody that's in my sphere. Like I kind of get that, and I send that sort of thing as often as I can, and I send it to random people. It's always different. It's never, sort of the same message, and it's what strikes me. So if I have a thought about somebody, like I'll probably text Jory a little bit later and tell her how awesome she is again, right? And now she totally responds quickly and like, thanks, you too, or like whatever. But like as I think of people, I'm like, let me just send that message right now.
Mm.
And I'll tell you that, so I turned 40 4 years ago, so you can do some math there. One of my dear friends put together a video and went out to all of our other friends and said, would you send me like just a minute or two about Lee? And it was probably the greatest gift that anyone's ever given me. And they, all my friends are on screen. And one of my friends who I've known forever said, that guy never misses a chance to tell you that he loves you. And that's just my favorite thing about him. Absolutely incredible. And that was like the most meaningful thing that I think I've ever heard in my entire life.
Wow. So you're getting quite emotional, which I think is beautiful.
Yeah.
So it's very visible on the Zoom. Hopefully you're picking up on the audio as well. So something that happened in Lee's life 4 years ago is still touching his heart today.
Yeah.
It's because people remember how you made them feel, right? So they might forget what this is Maya Angelou, everyone knows the quote.
Yep.
People might forget what you said, they might forget what you did, but they'll never forget how they made you feel. And look at Lee's physical and emotional reaction 4 years after something that touched his heart. It's just still with him today. There's 3 major things, including the example of the video that I've picked up from that, Lee. The first one is about authentic connection, all the way back to what you shared with your wife, to then the way that you tailored the message to every one of your team members. You were taking a genuine interest in them. And that's what builds authentic connection. That's what builds trust.
Yeah.
The second one is very interesting and one for us all to think about it at home. If it's out of character, if it's something that you haven't done before, it may take a while for people to get used to it. So I talk to people about the fact that how are you is not a greeting, it's a question. If you're going to ask it, you're going to take a genuine interest in the answer. Yeah. And certainly in Australia, where I grew up, it's definitely the case. But I think it's relatively universal that how are you has become a greeting. And you'll greet someone in the morning and you'll say, oh, how are you? Yeah, good, thanks. And they'll just go about their business. Initially, when you start applying this, where you are taking a genuine interest, you may have to say, no, really, how are you? That was a question. Yeah. It wasn't a greeting, right? You might have to repeat it a few times before they realize, oh, Mick is really asking how I am. Oh, okay. It's not just hello. All right. So it might take a while. And the third one that you said, I think is super importantly, maintenance. Then once you're in this pattern where you're taking that authentic connection, taking a genuine interest in people, it's not just, how are you today? Oh, tick in the box. I asked my team how I was. It's every day, and you decide your own patterns of how this happens. You need to have that maintenance of that connection.
And genuinely care about that response.
Yeah. Just beautifully. Thank you so much for sharing so openly with us today.
Totally.
It's just absolutely amazing. I think we have been talking for quite some time, even though both of us have completely lost track of temporal awareness. I will bring us to a close now. I'm going to go into our rapid fire.
Oh, good. This is where I shine. Bonus rounds. This is it. This is me.
But there's been so much out of today. It's just been an amazing experience talking with you today, Lee. And I know the audience is going to love it. So the rapid fire. What is your favorite book?
That's a loaded question. It's sort of like asking, like, which one of your kids do you like the most? You're not supposed to have an answer, but we all probably have an answer. I'll give it. I won't go with one because that's probably too hard. probably most impactful book on my life has been Start With Why by Simon Sinek. And I've said very, very early on, there are only a few people in my world that I would ever just say, I would follow these people blindly. Stephanie's one of them. Simon Sinek's another one. Vern Harnish is another one. And so like, I would follow these people. Kevin Fisher, my best friend, another one there too, right? Like I just say yes. So Simon Sinek, Start With Why. Amazing things on a business side, of course, things like Good to Great, Double Double by Cameron Herold. All these are really fantastic. You called one out actually in our as we were just getting set up. The Beastie Boys book. Sorry, I mispronounced that. I misspoke. It's Beastie Boys book. There's no the in the Beastie Boys. So there's a very good story about that in the book too. So that's kind of fun. Beastie Boys book is could be the story of myself and my friends Khalid and Nick from growing up. And so that one's been a meaningful one to me too. And a lot of other, there's so many, it's so hard to pick one. So there's a couple, yeah, maybe there's something in there.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you. All right, favorite quote.
Yep. Favorite quote. Probably one from my dad. I always allowed 10 minutes to get lost.
Nice. Love it.
There's always serendipity. There's always fun there.
Very good.
Yeah.
Okay. What's the one thing you know now that you wish you knew when you were 20?
Purpose is everything.
Yeah. Good. Love that. That's been a discovery for me as well, for sure. And finally, I'm sure all of our audience have been truly inspired by today. So many learnings for me personally. And I'm sure that everyone in the audience has learned a lot from today's session. If they want to get hold of you and learn more about what you do in any of your organizations, how do they get in contact with you, Lee?
Hopefully I'm super easy to find. You can reach out via email, lee@hessepartners.com, lee@HESSE partners.com. Find me on LinkedIn. That's a really good place where we connect. I post a lot of things there, and actually what I post a lot of the times there, Mick, are just great questions. And I like to foster that engagement in that environment, even on that social platform, where I try and just ask some random things. And sometimes it's what other people have talked about, and sometimes it's what, I'm thinking about today. And I usually phrase that as an open-ended question and just hope for greatness in the comments. So please do engage there. That's a super easy way to connect up, and let's talk. This is in our teaching with Simon. One of the things I love to talk about is at the very end. I mean, my why. You started off with this. My why is to create art so that everyone can discover their own inspiration, love, and greatness. Sometimes people think that by reaching out to me, that like it's an imposition, or that like they're taking up my time or something like that. And I kind of look at it the opposite way, to say, like, don't deny me living my why today, right? Like let's have this conversation. Let's create some art together, because there's so much greatness that can be there. So please do reach out. Let's talk. Let's have a conversation. It's money's always a byproduct. That's all stuff that I don't care about. And people are hounding me to be like, we owe you money. I'm like, oh, cool. Thanks. Like at some point, pay me, I guess. Right. Like that's the way I kind of operate. Like, let's talk, let's have a conversation. And that's what's way more intriguing to me than how much can I charge for this or anything along those lines.
Just brilliant. Thank you so much, Lee. It's been a great honor having you on the show. Thank you so much for your time. I've just loved this conversation. Literally, I could talk to you all day, and I'm sure that we would still be going. And just
let's go walk on the beach. We can do that. Let's go walk on the beach, though. It'll be just as good too.
I'll be on.
Might have more wind noise in the audio, but that's okay.
I'll be on a plane. I'll be over there tomorrow. No, fantastic.
Let's go.
Thank you so much, Lee. Really great honor.
Thank you.